Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The big story tonight comes from Gaza. Israel claims to have killed Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas chief, the man behind last year's October 7th attack. Israel says he's been killed, but will this end their operation in Gaza? Highly unlikely. Meanwhile, the Americans have given a deadly warning to Iran by using their more sophisticated stealth bombers to target Tehran's proxy, the Huthi group of Yemen. Over in Canada, Justin Trudeau has exposed himself. After all the hue and cry over concrete evidence, he says Canada gave no proof to India. His government is targeting the Indian media in the meantime. We'll bring you the details of their foreign ministry report. Also tell you how Canada designates terror groups, why Sikhs for Justice qualifies under their law to be called a terrorist group, but Trudeau's politics protects them. Will this diplomatic war hurt Canada's pension funds? We'll explain why we asked this. Did S. Jaishankar discuss India-Pakistan cricket ties at the SCO summit with his Pakistani counterpart? How the US election has turned into a battle of Fox interviews? Why tech giants are going nuclear? And what's the obsession with plasma as the ultra-rich try to reverse their rage? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. A German warship shoots down a drone off the Lebanese coast. The corvette was deployed as part of the United Nations peacekeeping operation. The drone was unmanned. None of the crew on the UNIFIL ship was hurt. In the last few days, UN soldiers have come under attack several times in Lebanon. Iran's top diplomat is on a rare visit to Egypt. He is the first Iranian foreign minister to visit Cairo since 2013. The minister met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Both leaders warned against the expansion of the regional conflict and called for intensifying efforts towards ceasefires in Gaza and Lebanon. Security forces in Mozambique opened fire to disperse hundreds of protesters. They were supporters of an opposition candidate who claims to have won the 9th October election. The protest began after the ruling party was declared the winner in an opposition stronghold. The nationwide official results are due on the 24th of October. Russian MPs back a ban on propaganda advocating for childless lifestyles. Moscow calls it Western liberal ideas. The proposed legislation would apply to media, advertising and films. Russia is facing an aging population and low birth rates. This demographic slump is a threat to its economic future. And Kylian Mbappe is shocked to see his name linked to a Swedish rape investigation. His lawyer insists that the Real Madrid star has done nothing wrong. Last week, after being ruled out of France's squad due to an injury, Mbappe had gone to Stockholm, where the alleged incident took place. Our lead story tonight is from West Asia, where Israel has achieved a major victory. They have killed their top target, Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar. The Israeli Defense Forces posted this on social media a few hours ago. They said they had killed 3 terrorists during a ground operation in Gaza, in the southern city of Rafah. Israel said it was trying to identify the bodies. It seems the results are out now, and one of them was Yahya Sinwar, one of those 3 bodies. The news has reached Israel's cabinet. There was reportedly a DNA match. So it's all but certain that Yahya Sinwar is dead. The celebrations have begun. Even before the confirmation, Israel's defense minister put out this tweet. The image at the center is blacked out, but it's clearly a taunt. Israel is goading its enemies. If you consider everything that has happened, it's really no wonder that Yoav Gallant and the rest are celebrating. Yahya Sinwar was the architect of the October 7th attack. He planned last year's assault. So he was enemy number 1 for Israel. If they've really managed to kill him, we can expect more Israeli celebrations. As we wait for the confirmation from other sources, let's take a closer look at Israel's greatest foe.
If the entire world won't move, take action and stop it, Israel. This will be the cause for the eruption of major religious war in the region and threatens a status of unrest and chaos in the Middle East and the entire world.
Yahya Sinwar was born in 1962. He was born in a refugee camp in Khan Yunis in central Gaza. Back then, Gaza was controlled by Egypt. This was in the aftermath of the first Arab-Israeli war. The Israelis won that war and established their country, and Egypt occupied Gaza. Sinwar grew up in that environment. His family was originally from near Ashkelon, in what is now Israel, but they were expelled before he was born. Sinwar grew up in Gaza. He joined the Muslim Brotherhood in his youth, then attended the Islamic University of Gaza and eventually led the Muslim Brotherhood student wing at this university. After graduating, Yahya Sinwar founded Majd, an organization that tracked down Palestinians who collaborated with Israel, a sort of a secret police. The organization would often kill the collaborators, people who worked with Israel, Palestinians who worked with Israel. And that is how Sinwar ended up in prison. He was arrested in 1988, given 4 life sentences and an additional 30 years in prison for his role in founding Majd. Sinwar ended up spending 23 years in prison. He was never supposed to be released, but Israel had to let him go in the year 2011 as part of a prisoner swap deal with Hamas. Hamas captured an Israeli soldier called Gilad Shalit in 2006. They held the soldier in Gaza for over 5 years. Israel failed to rescue him, so they agreed to the prisoner swap. Israel released 1,027 prisoners in exchange for 1 soldier. And one of those released prisoners was Yahya Sinwar. And this is Sinwar after he was released.
It's really an indescribable feeling. There is no doubt that this is a nationalistic event par excellence. It is one of the big strategic events in the history of our people's cause in the past years. So we are living a moment of unusual joy.
As soon as Sinwar was free, he was elevated to the position of senior Hamas leader, something like the group's defense minister. In 2017, Yahya Sinwar became the leader of Hamas in Gaza, and he used this position to plan and execute the October 7th attack. In August, Sinwar rose even higher this August. He was made Hamas's political chief, the group's top leader. He succeeded Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Iran. So for the last 2 months, Yahya Sinwar has been Hamas's paramount leader, or was Hamas's paramount leader, and now Israel has finally killed him. His death will mark a new phase in the Gaza war, that much is certain. But will Israel start wrapping things up now? Will they halt their offensive in Lebanon? Will peace finally return to West Asia? Probably not. Even though Sinwar is dead, Hamas still has Israeli hostages, and we've seen how fateful hostage negotiations can be. Meanwhile, Israel is on the war path with Hezbollah. It also attacked Syria today and has promised to strike Iran in the near future. So Sinwar's death probably won't usher in an era of peace, but Israel will celebrate his demise nonetheless.
الموت لأمريكا، الموت لإسرائيل، اللعنة على اليهود.
So Yahya Sinwar is dead, Israel is celebrating, but that's not all that's happening in West Asia. You also have the United States. They're stepping up their actions in the region, and they have taken aim at one of Israel's enemies, the Houthi rebel group in Yemen. The Houthis are backed by Iran. They are part of Iran's axis of resistance, or as Israel calls it, the axis of evil. The Houthis aren't really a major player in the West Asian conflict. They're more of a support faction. They mostly target international trade, the ships sailing through the Red Sea.
The Yemeni Houthi armed forces carried out 2 military operations. The first targeted the American oil tanker Olympic Spirit. The ship was targeted in the Red Sea with 11 ballistic missiles and 2 drones, and it was directly and severely hit by the grace of Allah.
That was the Houthi spokesperson. He announced their latest attack. It took place last week, and this is what the Houthis are most famous for: attacking ships. They've been doing it since last November, but yesterday it seemed that the US had finally had enough. They brought out the big guns, the B-2 Spirit, America's heavy strategic stealth bomber. The B-2 is almost undetectable. It has never been shot at. Enemies usually do not spot it until it's too late. The B-2 is one of the aces up America's sleeve, and they brought it out against the Houthis yesterday. The US then released a statement. They targeted 5 Houthi weapon depots. The depots weren't exactly special. They were fortified and located underground. But they did not contain any special munitions. So then why did the US bring out the B-2s? Why unleash such a powerful weapon? Well, this is a statement from the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Look at this part. It says, this was a unique demonstration of the United States' ability to target facilities that our adversaries seek to keep out of reach, no matter how deeply buried underground, hardened, or fortified. He's saying it loud and clear. It was a demonstration of America's ability to penetrate any military installation, no matter how deep underground. Each B-2 can enter enemy territory undetected and drop dozens of bombs all over the place, including this monster, the Massive Ordnance Air Blast, or MOAB, colloquially known as the mother of all bombs, MOAB. The MOAB has the destructive force of 18,000 pounds of TNT. It's the US military's most powerful non-nuclear bomb, and it's usually delivered by B-2 stealth bombers. That is the message that America is sending. This demonstration was not really for the Houthis, it was for their backers, the Iranians. Iran has been quite vocal lately. It fired about 200 missiles at Israel on the 1st of October, and after that, it has kept threatening the Israelis, warning them to not launch a retaliatory attack.
I am warning Israel and Israeli officials that the true promise, too, was only a warning. It was the smallest scale of action that we could carry out with the smallest portion of our power. Learn your lesson. We say it now, and you are aware that when we say it, we take action. Be careful not to make a mistake again. If you do, and target us in any way, whether in the region or in Iran, we will strike you in a painful manner again.
That was the latest threat issued by the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Hossein Salami. Every Iranian official has been repeating the same line. They keep warning Israel to not attack. But Israel is planning an attack anyway. The US has been trying to get Israel to tone down its response. Israel has agreed to only target military sites of Iran, instead of going after Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. This is probably the best deal that Joe Biden is going to get from Netanyahu. So the next step is stopping a retaliation from Iran. If Iran responds to an Israeli attack, there's no telling what will happen. So the US will want Iran to stay down. That is probably why they unleashed the B-2s. It is the ultimate intimidation tactic.
It was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof. India was itself hosting G20. We had the opportunity of making it a very uncomfortable summit for India. The Indian government made a horrific mistake.
It was intelligence, not evidence. Justin Trudeau has admitted it, that his government gave no proof to India. And with this statement, he stands exposed. Trudeau destroyed India's relationship with Canada without having any evidence. We have it from the horse's mouth. Listen to this again.
And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof. So we said, well, let's work together and look into your security services, and maybe we can get that done.
Trudeau was at a public inquiry yesterday. He was testifying about foreign interference in Canada and his government's response to it. More specifically, this inquiry is looking into Trudeau's own shortcomings. So the spotlight was directly on him, and that's what he's trying to deflect by shifting the blame to India. But he's only made the situation worse for himself. In his testimony, Justin Trudeau referred to an incident from last year. It happened at the G20 summit. Remember, India had played host to that summit last year. Trudeau had flown to New Delhi to attend the summit. He claims to have confronted India on that visit.
We knew that they were involved and expressed a real concern around it. He responded with the usual response from him, which is that we have people who are outspoken against the Indian government living in Canada that he would like to see arrested.
Trudeau is referring to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Both leaders had a meeting on the sidelines of the G20 summit, and Trudeau claims that he discussed the Nijjar case with Prime Minister Modi, the case that triggered this current standoff. Canada is blaming India for the death of a man called Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was shot dead in Canada last year. Nijjar was a Khalistani campaigning to break up the state of Punjab from India. He had been designated as a terrorist by the government of India. India wanted him arrested. Trudeau conveniently skips that fact in his statements, but he only ended up embarrassing himself. Listen to this now.
India to cooperate with us. Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And our response was, well, it's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, oh, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence.
Trudeau says India asked his government to show the evidence. And how did Canada respond? By telling India that you should look into this. In other words, Canada had no concrete evidence to support their claims, and they expected India to find the evidence just on the basis of Justin Trudeau's words. Like we said yesterday, he's in the trust me bro phase. And this whole spat with India is a result of that. Needless to say, it couldn't have been more bizarre. It shows how Trudeau handled, or rather mishandled, the whole situation. He blamed India in the Canadian Parliament. He sabotaged an important bilateral relationship just on the basis of what he calls preliminary intelligence. And this happened 1 year ago. So Trudeau had enough time to make amends, to fix the damage, or to provide the evidence to back up his claims. He did neither. Canada still hasn't given any evidence to India.
Since September of 2023, the Canadian government has not shared any shred of information with us. As regards the allegations, PM Trudeau's own admission yesterday would indicate the value of these allegations. As regards our stance, we will naturally reject false imputations against our diplomats.
New Delhi says Canada has not shared any shred of information. But 3 days ago, the Canadians upped the ante. They accused 6 Indian diplomats of serious crimes like murder and extortion. This fiasco is backfiring on Trudeau. It has severely undermined whatever was left of his credibility. It is becoming increasingly difficult to take him seriously now, especially after yesterday's testimony. Only intelligence but no hard proof, he says. This admission will haunt Trudeau. No mature country would give much weight to such claims. Intelligence by its very nature needs substantial corroboration to be credible. Otherwise, you end up with disasters like the Iraq War, where the West attacked the Saddam regime without any concrete proof of the weapons of mass destruction. Trudeau is walking the same path. His statements on India got all the attention yesterday, but he took aim at the opposition too, the Canadian opposition. He said the Conservatives have been compromised. That's the opposition party, the Conservatives. He said that their MPs are involved in foreign interference campaigns. Again, Justin Trudeau claims that he has specific intelligence and that he can name the compromised lawmakers, but he did not name them. As expected, the Conservatives have issued a sharp reaction. Their leader is a man called Pierre Poilievre. He is also the leader of opposition in Canada. Poilievre has dared Trudeau to release the names of these compromised lawmakers. And he did not mince his words. He said Justin Trudeau is lying and that China helped him win the last 2 elections. In fact, Trudeau was grilled on that too, on Chinese interference, Chinese meddling. Unlike India, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that China is meddling in Canada, that it meddled in the Canadian elections to help Trudeau win. They even caught a compromised lawmaker last year. His name is Hang Dong. Dong lobbied a Chinese diplomat to keep 2 Canadians inside a jail in Canada. So it is quite a serious affair with hard proof. But what did Trudeau have to say about Chinese meddling? Precious little. He was asked specifically about the activities of Chinese diplomats in Canada, and he tried to downplay the concerns. He said, and I'm quoting, "It is fairly obvious and a part of what diplomats do in all countries in all parts of the world." So it seems Trudeau doesn't see an issue with Chinese meddling, even when there is proof. But do the people of his country agree? Last year, a poll was conducted. It revealed that the majority of Canadians viewed China as a threat, but they held a favorable opinion of India. Justin Trudeau is bent on ruining that. He blames India and offers no proof. He blames the opposition and offers no proof. But he shields China where there is ample proof. The people of Canada should ask why. Say what you want about Justin Trudeau, but you cannot deny one thing. He believes in freedoms, like the freedom of expression or freedom of press, unless, of course, you're Indian press, in which case you're branded fake news. Let me show you a report by the Canadian government. It was published last month. It accuses Indian media of meddling in Canadian politics. Now, the data appears to be from last year, from 2023. That's after Trudeau accused India of killing Niger. It lists out a number of instances and quotes, all of them involving Indian media channels and commentators. And Firstpost has also been named in this report by the Canadian government. We've been accused of peddling fake narratives, of spreading disinformation about Canada. We'll get to the details in a bit. But first, listen to this part of the report. This is what it says. Some Indian outlets have more than 10 million YouTube subscribers. Canada's low subscriber numbers in comparison suggest a distinct advantage for Indian media. Is that a compliment or a complaint? Canada says Indian media outlets have more followers. As a result, we have an advantage. Well, congratulations, I guess. You have figured out maths and technology. But let's take a closer look at these so-called narratives. Apparently, Indian coverage portrayed Canadian diplomats in an unsavory light. Well, how unfortunate for them. God forbid someone threatens diplomats or shoots bullets at their posters or calls them terrorists. Does any of this sound familiar to you? This is exactly what happened to Indian diplomats in Canada. Trudeau did not seem to mind that, but he opposes unsavory depictions of his own diplomats. Let's move to complaint number 2. Indian media showed Niger as an unsavory individual. Well, first of all, someone get these guys a thesaurus. And secondly, unsavory is charitable. We have called him a terrorist and a separatist. So get your facts right. In fact, let me quote further from that report. These narratives seek to portray Niger as an individual who led a double life and discredit his role as a community leader in Surrey. A double life. Now, why would someone get that idea? Is it because Niger went to Canada on a fake passport? Or because his asylum bid was rejected? Or because Interpol issued a notice against him? Or because of the dozens of cases here in India against him? Maybe all of them. Which community leader has such a rap sheet? I'm hoping no one. Which brings us to the third complaint. Targeting of New Democrat leader Jagmeet Singh. Let me quote again. Many Indian media posts claim Jagmeet Singh is pro-Khalistani and is culpable of terrorism himself. These narratives present Singh as the reason for Prime Minister Trudeau's ruination. Again, just to be clear, we are not claiming Jagmeet Singh is a Khalistani. He is a Khalistani. I know Trudeau doesn't trust Indian media, so here's a Canadian report from 2018. It says Jagmeet Singh attended Khalistani rallies where violence against India was celebrated. That same year, he gave an interview. Jagmeet Singh was asked whether he supported Khalistan referendums. Listen to his answer.
As a leader of a federal party in Canada, it's not up to me, nor should I provide any input on whether people advocate for it or not. That is a decision by the people who are impacted.
Canada does not recognize these votes, nor does the government of India, but Jagmeet Singh refuses to take that position. He says it's not up to him. In another interview, he was asked about the Kanishk bombing of 1985, specifically about the mastermind, Talvinder Singh Parmar, but Jagmeet Singh refused to condemn him. He did make a U-turn many years later, but it tells you what he stood for. And now to the fourth complaint. Indian media says Trudeau invented this incident to score political points, basically vote bank politics. Fine, you don't listen to us. Listen to a former advisor of Justin Trudeau.
By taking goodwill measures, it would have at least been possible to keep talking and find workable policy solutions. The only problem was, Mr. Trudeau did not want to lose the Sikh vote to Jagmeet Singh, so he dug in our heels.
This was published in the Globe and Mail. Last we checked, it's a Canadian newspaper. Are they also spreading fake narratives? If so, why aren't they on this list? The fact is, Justin Trudeau is shooting the messenger. Maybe some random influencers are pushing fake narratives, but the overwhelming perception is not wrong. Trudeau and his government allowed Khalistani radicals to flourish, and Hardeep Singh Nijjar was one of them. You can name-call the Indian media all you want to, but it does not change the facts. Also, just some advice for your staff. Maybe stop counting our views and subscribers on YouTube. Instead, try finding that promised evidence. That is, of course, if it even exists. Sikhs for Justice. It's a name you may have heard many times on this show. India has banned this organization. It's been declared a terrorist group. But for Canada, SFJ or Sikhs for Justice is an activist agency. One that has ties to the Prime Minister's office. And we are not the ones saying it. Their leader, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, admitted it.
Sikhs for Justice have been communicating with the Prime Minister office for the last 2 to 3 years, detailing all the spy network.
So Pannu and Trudeau have been in talks, that too for nearly 3 years. But what is the true face of this so-called advocacy group? Why doesn't Canada ban it? First, let's take a closer look at their laws. How does Canada list terrorist groups? Based on 2 criteria. 1, carrying out, attempting to carry out, or facilitating terrorist activity. And 2, knowingly acting on behalf of or helping a terrorist group. It's pretty broad criteria. Canada has used it to ban 78 groups so far. But the question is, does Sikhs for Justice fit the bill? In India, it certainly did. Just look at some of their cases. In 2018, 2 radicals put liquor shops on fire in Punjab. They turned out to be SFJ operatives, radicalized and trained by the likes of Pannu. The same year, 2 more operatives were arrested. They had pasted Khalistan referendum posters in Amritsar. What's more, they had procured weapons. In 2019, 3 more SFJ henchmen were arrested. 2 guns were recovered from them. Their aim was to kill political leaders. Now, these are the cases in India. The government has also compiled instances abroad. In 2018, a Sikh leader from Delhi visited the US. There, he was attacked by SFJ operatives. 2 of them were later detained by American agencies. Now, these are examples of direct violence. We also have glorification. Take a look at this SFJ poster from 2019. It promoted the so-called Khalistan referendum. And who do you see in that picture? Talvinder Singh Parmar, the mastermind of the 1985 Air India bombing, the worst terror attack on Canadian soil, the worst in Canadian history. Look at how SFJ describes the man who plotted it as Shaheed or martyr. Even the SFJ campaign headquarters was named after Parmar. Does this sound like an advocacy group to you? Or does it sound like a terrorist group? The fact is, violence is a big part of SFJ's campaigns. They have openly threatened Canadian lawmakers, that too of Trudeau's own party. One of them is Chandra Arya. He had condemned the vandalism at Canadian Hindu temples. Look at how Pannu reacted to him.
The likes of Arya and his supporters, you have no place in Canada because you are working against the Canadian values, you are working against the Charter of Rights, and you are promoting the interest of your masters, India. You all must abandon your citizenship and move back to your motherland, India.
Imagine the audacity. He's asking an elected Canadian lawmaker to leave the country to go back to India, yet Justin Trudeau does nothing. Instead of cracking down, he stays in contact with Pannu. This is the same Trudeau who talks about protecting ordinary citizens of Canada. But he can't defend his MP. Now we get the logistical issue here. Pannu is based in the United States, so is most of the SFJ leadership and volunteers. So why should Canada ban it? To answer that, we must look at the other groups that Canada has listed as terror groups, like the Russian Imperial Movement. It's a neo-Nazi group based in Russia. There is no history of them attacking Canada, but it has been listed as a terror group by the Canadian government. Another example is Sami Duon. It's a Palestinian group. Their main goal is to release jailed Palestinians from Israel, but Canada says these prisoners are linked to terrorists. That's the official reason, but the ban came a week after this group organized Gaza protests in Canada. Their supporters burned the Canadian flag, so Trudeau decided to ban them. A third example is the Proud Boys, a neo-Nazi group based in the US. Canada banned them in 2021 after the US Capitol riots. Now, don't get us wrong, all these groups deserve to be banned, but Canada's reasons were quite flimsy. So if these groups can be banned, why not Sikhs for Justice? In fact, they had plenty of premise to do so. In 2018, Canada's government released a threat report. For the first time, they mentioned Sikh extremism. Guess who stepped in? Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. He accused Justin Trudeau of labeling Sikhs as terrorists, of using them as vote banks. And what did Prime Minister Trudeau do? He published an updated report in 2019, and this one, of course, did not mention Sikh extremism or Khalistan at all. So my point is quite simple. Canadian laws do allow for Trudeau to ban SFJ. According to the laws, the group does qualify as a terrorist group, but what comes in the way is Trudeau's politics. Now we have confirmation that Pannu was in contact with Trudeau. Who knows, maybe this is just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe the links run a lot deeper. So India's relationship with Canada has hit rock bottom. The standoff may be diplomatic, but it will have wider consequences. I'll give you an example. Leading Canadian pension funds have invested in India. They have holdings worth billions of dollars in the Indian stock market. Will these funds have to pull out their money? And what about people-to-people ties? Reports say India is planning for all kinds of scenarios, including a potential shutdown of consulates and visa delays. Our next report explores these challenges.
India and Justin Trudeau are on a warpath. The Canadian Prime Minister insists he wasn't trying to pick a fight.
As I've said a number of times, we are not looking to provoke or create a fight with India.
His Foreign Minister Melanie Joly too wants engagement.
To be clear, we're not seeking diplomatic confrontation with India.
But with India downgrading ties, any hope for a dialogue now seems like a long shot. How will this impact the India-Canada relationship? Some signs of strain were already visible. Last year, when Trudeau triggered the bitter fight with India, it had an immediate fallout on the trade relationship. India and Canada were discussing a free trade pact. The negotiations were immediately put on hold. Needless to say, it's now off the table. More significantly, Canadian investors may start rethinking their investments in India. Canadian investment funds are among them. Canada's pension funds and private investors have poured in at least $21 billion into India in the last 5 years. This includes names like Brookfield Asset Management and Fairfax Financial. For the moment, they seem to be sitting tight. There is no significant change in their Indian holdings so far. But with Canadian politicians suggesting economic sanctions on India, these investors wouldn't rest easy. A bigger worry are the visas. India has downgraded its ties with Canada and expelled 6 Canadian diplomats. Already, the Canadian mission in India was operating with reduced staff. Last year, New Delhi had demanded a reduction in staff from Ottawa. It led to the departure of over 40 Canadian diplomats from India, effectively reducing Canada's presence by 2/3. Will the processing of visas take a hit? So far, Canada hasn't indicated so. Reports say Ottawa wants to keep its consulates open in India, but New Delhi is preparing for a complete and total shutdown. Canada wouldn't like that because it would end up hurting one of its biggest source of incomes, the Indian students, those who want to study in Canada. Over 400 Indian students currently study in Canada, and they contribute millions to the Canadian economy. Experts are already warning about a shift. Reports say Canada could see a 20% fall in student interest from India. There is still a chance for Ottawa to avoid these outcomes, but with Trudeau on a warpath against India, it seems things will only go downhill from here.
We told you about the SCO summit yesterday. The meetings are done and dusted. The leaders are back home. But one picture from the summit is now going viral. Let me pull it up for you. It's a picture of India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Sitting beside him is Ishaq Dar, Pakistan's foreign minister. Both leaders were together during lunch. They seem to enjoy each other's company as well. So naturally, questions are being asked. Some Indian media reports fuel the speculation. They claim that there was a brief interaction around 5 or 7 minutes long. They also said that Pakistan's cricket chief joined Jaishankar and Dar, apparently with a suggestion to use cricket to break the ice between India and Pakistan. Now, the timing is perfect. Pakistan is hosting the Champions Trophy next year, but India has not committed to going. So, Islamabad would love for cricketing ties to resume. Just one problem, though. India says none of this happened. Only pleasantries were exchanged.
You would have seen the only bilateral meeting that our External Affairs Minister had was with Mongolia. Other than that, there were some pleasantries which were exchanged on the sidelines of the meeting, especially during lunch and dinner. Whether any conversation regarding cricket happened or not, I would say nothing of that sort happened.
Pakistani media tells a different story. They say the whole thing was choreographed. Why? So that Jaishankar and Ishaq Dar could be seated together at lunch, so they could talk informally. But frankly, it's not a question of logistics. It's a question of political will. Do India and Pakistan want a reset? Well, Islamabad certainly does. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has been quite vocal about it. He says India and Pakistan have wasted 75 years fighting. Another 75 years should not be wasted. So Pakistan, he says, is game, which is why they did not raise their favorite issue, that of Kashmir. Just think back to 2023. India was hosting the SCO Foreign Ministers meet in 2023. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was the Pakistani foreign minister then, and he had come to India. And while here, he talked about Kashmir. He blamed India for removing Article 370, the law that gave Kashmir special status. Of course, New Delhi hit back. Jaishankar called Bhutto the spokesperson of terrorism. So the 2023 meeting was a heated one. Compared to that, this one went well. No heated exchanges, no blame games, not that we know of. In fact, Jaishankar thanked Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif before heading back. Even at the SCO, he did not take names, only a veiled dig at Pakistan. So the temperature was clearly lower this time. But will that translate to gains? Well, that depends on India. You see, New Delhi is well placed right now. both financially and politically. Gone are the days when Pakistan would dominate India's policy. Today, the focus is elsewhere, on China, on Europe, and recently Canada. So we gain nothing by investing in a reset. But Pakistan's case is different. Their economy is stalled, Chinese investments are slowing down, and they're running out of foreign exchange. So Islamabad would like a reset, which puts the focus on India's Pakistan policy. Will India play ball? The official policy is that terror and talks cannot go hand in hand, meaning Pakistan must stop backing terrorism first, only then will ties improve. That is India's stated position. Minister Jaishankar was asked about this in August. He said India's policy is not passive, that India will react to positive developments.
The issue today is what kind of relationship can we possibly contemplate with Pakistan. What I do want to say is we are not passive, and whether events take a positive or a negative direction, either way we will react to it.
That's the key here, positive developments. Pakistan must show that it has changed its ways. There must be tangible evidence for that. If not, history may repeat itself. Think back to all the resets that we've had with the Pakistanis. The latest one was last decade. Prime Minister Modi invited Nawaz Sharif to his swearing-in ceremony. He flew to Lahore and surprised him on his birthday. And what did India get in return? More terrorist attacks, more betrayals. So India's policy must be unwavering. It's easy for Nawaz Sharif to demand a reset, to ask India to forget the past, but the past has never stopped India from moving on. It is the future that worries India. A future where Pakistan keeps supporting terrorism. Unless that changes, the ties will not improve. In the US election, campaigning is on in full swing. Both candidates are on a media blitz. Yesterday, Kamala Harris gave an interview to Fox News. The conversation was short, but it was very combative. Harris talked about everything from immigration to gender affirmation surgery. What stood out, however, was how she distanced herself from Joe Biden's legacy. On the other side, Donald Trump was also on Fox News, this time for a town hall. He was trying to woo women voters. He bagged his support for IVF, in vitro fertilization. But he did it in a Trumpian fashion by calling himself the father of IVF. Our next report brings you all the details.
Two presidential candidates, two conversations, and one TV network at the center of it all. Looks like Fox News is the favorite this election season. There's less than 3 weeks to go for the polls, and both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are on Fox, making their final pitches to the voters. Yesterday, Kamala Harris sat down with Fox News anchor Bret Baier. The conversation wasn't very long, just around 25 minutes. It was her first interview with the network since she became the Democratic presidential nominee, and it was combative.
The first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill. I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
So there was a lot of back and forth, but the interview had three main takeaways. The first is immigration. It's a key issue in this presidential election. Kamala Harris was asked about her stance and her many flip-flops.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president, and I will not do that as president.
Another issue of contention was taxpayer-funded gender reassignment surgery for prisoners. Kamala Harris had supported it in the past. The Trump campaign has slammed her on the basis of this. So she was questioned about it, and Harris had only one thing to say. She said she would follow the law, but stressed that it was the same law that even Trump followed. In fact, the federal law has been in effect since February 2018. Which brings us to the third issue, Harris's predecessor, Joe Biden. Biden dropped out of the race in July. He endorsed Harris.
I've served with her. I know her. I trust her.
She got the nomination and his funds. Until now, she's embraced his policies. But recently, the vice president seems to have done a U-turn. She's keen to distance herself from the Biden administration, the same administration that she was a part of.
My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
So, combative and brief. That was Harris's stint at Fox News. And what did Trump's interview look like? Well, more of the usual. Donald Trump is no stranger to Fox News. He even dials in for morning shows, and the network has backed him throughout. So he chose to use Fox News to connect with an unlikely voter base, the women of America. And he tried to woo them in true Trump fashion.
I'm the father.
You don't hear that every day.
I'm the father of IVF, so I want to hear this question.
This was a Fox News town hall. Trump was connecting with women voters. We don't know how much being the father of IVF will woo them, but there's a clear strategy here. Harris's interview was in Pennsylvania, Trump's town hall in Georgia. These are swing states. Whoever wins them wins the presidency. So the candidates are on a media blitz. We don't know who will come out on top, but Fox News seems to be making the most of it.
Now let's talk about big tech. It's going nuclear. And before you wonder, no, they're not building bombs. Silicon Valley is instead courting nuclear energy to power its pet project, artificial intelligence. You see, AI generation requires a lot of energy. Even one prompt consumes a lot of power. And that is proving to be unsustainable for these companies. They're already abandoning their climate commitments. So they have turned to the next best solution, and that is nuclear energy. This way they can go green, but also power AI. Microsoft, Google, and now Amazon have embraced this strategy. But could it backfire? Is nuclear power the solution for big tech's energy needs? Our next report tells you.
For years, nuclear power has been synonymous with catastrophe. It brings to mind meltdowns, radioactive fallout, and gripping dramas. Humanity has seen the worst of it. So many argued we should leave it where it belongs, in the history books. But Silicon Valley has some other ideas. We live in a world where technology is growing at a record speed. Artificial intelligence is already engulfing our lives. So big tech is bringing back nuclear power, this time to fuel the engines of AI. Recently, Microsoft made it to the headlines. The reason was this nuclear reactor. It's located on the notorious 3 Mile Island. This was the site of America's most infamous nuclear accident. Now Microsoft is reviving it. It's giving the reactor a second life, this time to keep the servers of the future running at peak efficiency. And Microsoft isn't alone. Google too is tapping into nuclear energy, but it's using small modular nuclear reactors. These are smaller and promise to be safer than the colossal reactors of the past. Amazon has joined the nuclear race as well. It has signed a deal with Dominion Energy to build a new reactor in Virginia. The purpose? To supply Amazon Web Services with enough power to sustain its colossal data centers.
SMR, small modular reactors, are a huge piece of how we're going to solve this puzzle of getting to 100% clean electricity by 2035 while responding to all of the demand that will be created as a result of the data centers and the other and the new factories, et cetera, that are coming online.
Now, these data centers are the heart of Silicon Valley's AI revolution. You can ask ChatGPT silly questions, but remember, each question is consuming a lot of power. For example, a year of using ChatGPT can power New Zealand for 3 months. Nigeria can run on that power for 4 months. So data centers are guzzlers of energy. Currently, they consume around 4% of all electricity in the United States. By 2030, that number could rise to 9%. So AI is extremely power hungry. And this is a problem for big tech. They promise to go green, yet the technology they are investing in is pushing them away from that goal. Both Google and Microsoft pledged to be carbon-free by 2030. Yet their emissions have only increased since 2020. Microsoft's emissions are up by 40%, Google's by 48%. So big tech is turning nuclear, because that's the only answer that aligns with their climate commitments. How? Nuclear plants can operate at over 90% capacity. That means they provide a steady stream of power without the downtime that solar or wind energy need. But the road is anything but smooth. In the last 10 years, the US has decommissioned 7 nuclear reactors. Only 2 were turned on. Plus, the challenge is not the science, it's the regulations and public perception. People don't mind solar farms or wind turbines, but a nuclear reactor in their backyard, that's a different story. Despite growing support in surveys, nuclear power battles an image problem. There are concerns about safety and radiation. So as Silicon Valley races towards an AI-dominated future, it finds itself at a crossroads. Will nuclear power be the savior they need, or will regulations and stigma push them back? We don't know yet. But one thing's for sure, the energy landscape is changing. As AI grows smarter, how we use it will power our future.
Immortality. It has long been seen as science fiction until recently, until the tech millionaires got involved with their brilliant minds and their large wallets. They have embarked on the quest for eternal life. And their flag bearer is this man, Brian Johnson. You may not have heard of him, but you have most likely seen him online, sometimes holding vials of blood, sometimes with bags of golden liquids, but always wrinkle-free. Johnson is the viral king of supposed age reversal. He's a tech mogul. Some years ago, he made a massive fortune after selling his company to eBay, the e-commerce company. He made $800 million from the deal. Now, if you were in his place with $800 million from a deal, what would you have done with that money? Traveled the world? Bought a private island? Well, Johnson went another way. He started chasing immortality, and he claims to have made some progress. The millionaire is 47 years old. That's his real chronological age, 47 years. But his biological age, meaning how old his body seems, is 31. How did he manage to do this? Johnson takes more than 100 supplements a day, 100 supplements a day. He doesn't eat after 11 a.m. And when he does eat, it's exclusively pureed vegetables, or what mere mortals call baby food. He submits himself to constant medical checks. He goes to bed at 8:30 p.m. and he undergoes a bizarre array of treatments, from shockwave therapy to blood plasma exchange. Plasma is a yellowish component of blood. It contains protein. Last year, Johnson swapped blood with his teenage son, whom he fondly calls Blood Boy. Later, Johnson removed 1 liter of his plasma and transferred it to his father, who is 71 years old. Now, Johnson claims that this has reduced his father's age by 25 years, this plasma transfusion, 25 years. So the big question is this: is the Johnson family tree actually benefiting from one man's anti-aging fanatics? Scientists are skeptical. They say markers of health like good blood quality or lung capacity are not markers of de-aging. So people can get healthier, but their age cannot be reversed. Yet, the tech mogul remains undeterred. Now he has removed all of his plasma and replaced it with albumin, which is another type of protein. And he claims that this will reduce his age. It reduces it further. But as absurd and expensive as his agenda is, Johnson is hardly alone. This is Peter Diamandis, a US entrepreneur. He regularly undergoes blood plasma exchange. Then you have Dave Asprey, another tech entrepreneur. He is on an anti-aging brain-boosting diet, which costs $16,000. Those who aren't changing their own biology are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in companies that are trying to do it, like Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and PayPal founder Peter Thiel. So this is the bold ambition of rich white men. They want to stop time. But at what cost? And this question is not about finances. This is a bigger, more existential question, if you will. Why do some people dread getting older? Why has this always been the case? Because age reversal may sound like a futuristic concept, but historically, humans have always sought cures for aging. In 1642, Louis VIII was ruling France. He exchanged his blood with a lamb's blood. Of course, he died. Before him, in 1492, the then Pope did something similar, but worse. He drained the blood of 3 young boys and had it put in his body. All 4 people died soon after. In many ways, the so-called future of anti-aging is like its past, bizarre, morbid, but often a source of entertainment too. It is a spectacle of people with huge resources spending money, time and effort on a joyless pursuit that is most likely bound to fail. And even if it works, even if these tech moguls manage to reverse aging, what is the point of this long life that they're chasing with baby food and lamb blood if it's not a fulfilling one? You know those flag quiz games on the internet? The game shows you a flag, you must guess which country it belongs to. A lot of people say it's nerdy and boring. Well, maybe not anymore, because let me tell you what happened in New Jersey. A woman was out on a walk this Tuesday. She passed a restaurant with a lot of flags, and in a fit of rage, she started tearing them down. Do you know why? Because she thought that they were Israeli flags. And this woman was a Palestine supporter, so she tore them down. But here's the problem. They were not Israeli flags. They were Greek flags. I guess the colors threw her off. Or maybe modern day activism does not pay much attention to geography. Either way, the internet had a field day.
Look at that shit. And I'm about to come back and put Free Palestine too. The Free Palestine, bitch. Look, what you looking at? You know damn well there's a genocide. You know there's a genocide. Now stop it. I'm taking this shit down. I believe this one. Take this one down right here. What are they gonna do? They can't do nothing. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for this. There's genocide, and I don't stand for Zionism. And Montclair, I don't support it. There's a genocide. You know that, right? They're killing children. What's the purpose? Be proud of your heritage. Y'all understand there's a genocide, right? You understand, right? There's nothing against people who are Jewish, but this is not okay.
This is Greek.
Who's this?
This is Greek.
What? Really?
Greek.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was Israel. My bad. Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit, my bad. Look, it looked like Israel. It's really not.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Fans hold overnight vigils and sing songs outside the hotel where One Direction star Liam Payne died. The biggest supermoon of the year illuminates the Hong Kong skyline, and the world's most talented Lego builders show off their unique creations in Denmark. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1973, oil cartel OPEC announced an embargo on oil exports. It cut exports to the US and other countries that were giving military aid to Israel during the Yom Kippur War. This led to oil prices soaring to unprecedented levels. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
Down to the stars, does the time we will stay. Lie awake, only hoping they're okay.
Cuando se trata